Well, it's estimated over 4 million deaths occur worldwide every year due to the burning of fossil fuels. Greenpeace Africa is estimating that 3.3% of the global GDP is even lost every year as a result of this. In South Africa alone, an estimated 13 premature deaths were attributed to fossil fuel-related air pollution in 2018. Let's unpack just how severe this actually is and where are we on the situation. I'm joined by Bokelwa Nzimande from Greenpeace Africa. Bokelwa, good to have you with us. I'm taking a quick look at the Greenpeace Africa website, and you're using the word apocalypse. It's quite serious.
It is quite serious because it's a public health crisis at that stage. And I think this report comes at a stage where last year and the year before, like, the area of Mpumalanga was highlighted as an air pollution hotspot. And for a lot of people, because it's so far away from cities, there wasn't really an awareness around how big the problem is, because some of that air moves to Gauteng and people are impacted in those areas. So that was focusing specifically on NO2 and SO2. And what this report is then further highlighting is that all of us as South Africans, the air pollution crisis is affecting us, and we're paying for it with our lives. And it's an apocalypse. That's because you can't see the pollution. It's exactly like how we used to be made aware of pollution in water, is that if you're drinking water, you can't necessarily see that it's polluted. It's exactly the same with the air that we're breathing. It
almost takes you back to the days of when mining regulations weren't up to scratch, and people living near those mining areas, those mine dumps, would get all kinds of lung infections.
Absolutely.
So what now for government? We heard with the State of the Nation address, there was some at least attention paid to Eskom and the use of dirty coal and now rooftop solar coming in. This isn't a quick fix, though. There just isn't a plaster you can pull off and go, we've healed it.
Exactly. It's exactly that. It's going to take us a process. And the very first start is action and certainty in our policy space to ensure that there is confidence in investors, there's confidence in the people, because at this point, the coal is more sustainable, is cheaper party. We're starting to recognize, as ordinary South Africans, we're impacted. We're starting to see that coal is not as reliable as we were once told. But also there is a space for solutions, actually, such as renewable energy. But that will require for the policy space to actually mirror or...
And how far away are we from that mirroring where you're suggesting the country should be? Like, take me through a timeline. Are we talking a year, 5 years, 10 years, decade?
It's very hard to put a timeline to such things, really, because I think it's last year where the integrated resource plan was released, and we had been waiting for that integrated resource plan. Before last year, the last update to that plan was in 2010. So the gap between 2010 for a plan that's meant to be updated every 5 years, you can clearly see that there isn't strong political will, one, but also it's quite a tricky game. It's heavily political. There are powers that are at play, basically, and it's really up to our government to take bold and courageous actions to ensure that not only our health, but also our economy, because, like you're rightfully saying, it's also costing us in ways that we can't imagine.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's difficult to imagine the effects of air pollution down the road for the economy, but how is it affecting us now? Help me understand that.
Yeah. So if you would imagine some of the stats that are given, for example, the 13,000 premature deaths, for example, those are 13 lives that have either been shortened or lost. There are treatment costs that are associated to that. There is managing a chronic disease, which in our case, as South Africans, most of us are dependent on the public health system. So that is costing us to a certain extent. There are also numbers around days off work, for example. It means that the workforce, if you weaken that, you're weakening our economy to a certain extent. So it's not only lives which matter, but also people are impacted, and in turn, the economy.
And before I say goodbye to you, because we can unpack this issue all day, but I think I do want to bring people, you're talking about action, and people need to do something. Someone sitting at home now is going to say, yes, I've heard this, what do I do? And I'm going to bring you back to the Greenpeace website, greenpeace.org. /Africa, there's an email that can be sent. And I just want to read this very quickly.
Yeah.
The Ministries of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries and the National Air Quality Officer have the power to stop exactly what you're talking about. Okay, well, take action, send an email. What is that going to do? It gives a viewer something to do now, but what is this? What is it going to do for your website, your organization?
So what that does really is it's sending a stronger voice. It's not just Greenpeace that's saying, here's the problem, government do something. There's an awareness element that's saying, we're not causing the air pollution, but you can basically put pressure on the people who can make those decisions. Currently, both SASOL and Eskom have applied for a 5-year extension for their minimum emission standards. And when we're looking at our standards now for air quality, they are pathetically low compared to the rest of the world, including China. So if there are more people that are putting that pressure to the right people who can actually call these polluters accountable, it's at the right place.
And they can do that now on the website as well. As I say goodbye to you, thank you. Greenpeace.org/Africa. You can go and send that email if it's something that you want to get involved in. Greenpeace Africa calling it Airpocalypse. Joining me from Greenpeace, climate and energy campaigner Bokelwa Nzamande. Thank you for coming in to speak to us.